What's going on, guys? Welcome to our brand video on this channel. In today's video we're talking about the iPhone 8 and of course the Galaxy Note 8. Now, I know a lot of you out there are thinking, hey, you've been talking about these phones a lot, but that's because I think these are going to be two of the most popular phones out of all the smartphones in the industry. You have the Galaxy Note 8 that supposedly is going to be announced in August, so there's a possibility there that Samsung is going to announce the phone before even the iPhone 8. And I also think with Apple and the iPhone 8, even though if they don't announce it before Samsung, they're still going to have an impressive phone. I saw some photos of what the iPhone 8 could look like, and that's all speculation right now. But if you can see what's going on with Samsung, you know Apple has to start manufacturing a phone that is that much more impressive than any iPhone that's ever been manufactured before. And that starts with the screen technology. When you talk about the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus right now, people are saying those phones are better than the iPhone 7 Plus. Obviously, because the design is much more unique and much more innovative. Of course, the hardware is better. When we're talking about the iPhone 8, I still think it can be an impressive phone. I think people were confused when I was talking about the iPhone 8 and even iOS and saying stuff about iOS. That does not mean the phone can't be impressive. I think there's going to be some of the best hardware ever that Apple has included with the iPhone 8. When you have two companies like this going against each other, and it is about Samsung and Apple, you have to think about what they can do to impress consumers out there. With the iPhone 8 also, I'm hearing talk about possibly dual speakers, even a better screen of course, a better camera, dual cameras on the back of the phone. There's all sorts of possibilities for what this phone could be. When I was talking about that sensor in the previous video, if Apple removes that button from the iPhone, obviously that's going to be noticeable to a lot of people, and it's going to look like they innovated the phone, which they did, because if they remove that button, the design is that much better. When you look at the Galaxy Note 8, the fact that you have that sensor on the back of the phone, a lot of people have complaints about it because when you try to access the sensor, you also have the lenses to the camera. So you have to think about that as well. What can these companies do to innovate their phones, and consumers out there or fans of their companies can be that much more impressed with what they're manufacturing? That's what it's all about. With the iPhone 8 also, regardless of iOS and then a situation with that, I think the hardware is going to be that much more fantastic than previous versions of the iPhone, because this is going to be a major change for the iPhone and Apple, but they're going to be competing with Samsung at the same time, where they actually manufacture the phone, although it might be similar to the Galaxy phones, where it's unique in design, where it's impressive, and fans of their company can actually buy a phone and say, you know what, this time around, Apple changed the design, it looks great, and this is a phone that I would purchase because the hardware is there, you get great customer service, and you're going to get a great experience. Although I'm not a fan of iOS, I realize that with the iPhone, and I know a lot of people are fans of the iPhone because they're fans of iOS. You know, there are people out there that like iOS, and just because I like Android doesn't mean the phone's not good. It just means that I'm not a fan of iOS the way it is now. As far as the iPhone though, the hardware is going to be that great where you're going to see a lot of people purchase that phone because it's an upgrade. It's a great upgrade. It's going to be a very impressive phone. That's what I'm saying, even before Apple manufactures that phone. As far as the Galaxy Note 8, again, I'm hearing talk about a 13 megapixel camera. That is a possibility. Talking about possibly even dual speakers. So if there's an upgrade there, that's also impressive. As far as the cost of the phones, a lot of people have been asking questions about that. The situation with both of those companies, the way they're charging for the phones, I would have to say they would increase the price of the phones because you have a situation where they're making a lot of improvements to the phones. Of course, consumers out there are noticing the upgrades, and they might switch even from a different company. So if someone is a fan of the iPhone, who knows, they could buy a Galaxy phone, or even if you used to buy the Galaxy phones, you buy an iPhone. It does happen. Actually, a lot of people are talking about in the industry that the iPhone would increase in price just for the fact that the iPhone has to be upgraded. And we're talking about real upgrades. This is not one of your incremental upgrades where you just notice a few things with the phone. We're talking about a major overhaul of that phone where you're going to notice a lot of differences. And even if you never purchased an iPhone, you might want to buy that phone. I'm going to be looking at all these phones. I'm not someone that just says one phone is the best without actually looking at all of them. You know, but with the Galaxy Note 8, as I've been saying, I do think that phone could be the phone of the year. And then when we're talking about the iPhone, it could be just as impressive, or it could just be as impressive with the hardware, but not necessarily with the OS, of course, because I'm not a fan of iOS. But that being said, if we're just comparing the hardware, you know that Apple is going to be manufacturing one of the best phones of the year, in my opinion, because they have to. This is one of those situations when you're competing with Samsung and you're noticing all the innovative technology from Samsung, including that camera, because there's talk that Samsung is manufacturing the camera too. Samsung is manufacturing manufacturing all these parts for their phones. And that's another separate issue that people might have with them, is that people are talking about that they could be rushing the phone because they want to announce it before the iPhone. You have to talk about when they announce the phones, because the manufacturing is what's going to allow them to have the best phone of the year. So if you have these companies actually say, you know what, we need to manufacture it by a certain point in time, and then you have another company that's like, you know what, we can continue manufacturing the phone and we don't have to do that because we have a lot of loyal fans. And that is something that Apple does as well. If you notice something about Apple, even if there's delays in manufacturing, you're always going to have a tremendous amount of people go out there and purchase that phone. With Samsung, they realize that they're competing with that. So it's important to them to announce the phone way before Apple. And when I say way before, at least a month in advance or so, to actually let people purchase the phone if they're interested in it. You know, you have to announce the phone and then explain to people why you're so impressed with the phone. Now, if you're talking about the iPhone 8, this phone is going to be impressive with the hardware, but the way Apple announces the phone, usually they have that event, everyone's watching the event. I mean, even with the recent Apple event, people are listening because they want to know what Apple's doing. I'm not saying that's not the same situation with Samsung, but Samsung has to go even beyond that because they want to gain a lot more consumers' attention with their new technology. It's different. This is not the usual phones that we've been seeing for a while now. You might have seen one edge to a phone with the previous versions of the Galaxy phone, but now you're going to see even a better phone from Samsung that is going to be very unique and also have the hardware. You have to explain to consumers out there why they should be spending more money on these phones. I think it's obvious to say that the iPhone and of course the Galaxy phones is going to take a lot more resources just to manufacture the phones. But when you compare the phones, I really do think that both the iPhone 8 and of course the Galaxy Note 8 are going to be quality smartphones, and they are going to be the two phones that a lot of people are going to focus on. When you have Apple and Samsung involved in manufacturing a smartphone, it's really tough for other companies out there to compete even with that. But I would like to know what you guys think about all of this. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think about the iPhone 8 or even the Galaxy Note 8. And of course, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.